this episode, we're going to focus on phase 2 of the creative process, which is exploration. And I'm going to talk to you today about a really cool and very simple technique to create a map. The first kind of major starting point in world building is figuring out where everything goes in your world so that it makes sense as you're telling your story. And as we do this process, I think you'll find out that you can start to come up with some really cool ideas for characters and for locations or points of interest around your world. So the technique I'm about to show you is something that I didn't come up with myself. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and link below the creator who I found that did this, but it was actually from a trend several years ago, and I incorporated it into my lesson plans and brought it into my classroom with my students, and they always got a kick out of doing this process and this technique. For this process, we're going to need a couple basic items. Obviously, something to draw on. We're going to need our pencil. And then we're going to be using some type of loose material. In this case, it could be rice or beans, or if you've got both, you can mix them together like mine. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take our loose material. I don't think I'll have to use this entire container, so I'm going to just kind of grab a handful, and I'm just going to lay down a generous amount here in the middle. Extra points to you if you don't make a giant mess while doing this. A little bit more rice to my beans ratio. Okay, I think that's good enough. Now, the next part of this process, we're going to take our hands and we're going to look to smooth out the pile that we've created. And for me, I like to mix the rice and the beans together a little bit because I find that it gives a little bit more interesting variation in shape. The reason why we're using this technique is because it allows us to come up with more randomized shapes and lines than if we were to just sit here and simply draw it out with our pencils. And so while I'm doing this, I'm thinking about the shape of my land. Do I want it to be an island in the middle of this piece of paper, right? Or do I want it to be a peninsula, which has water around 3 sides? Or do I want it to actually be a giant landmass where it takes up the entire page? Or do I kind of want a combination? And so I'm going to think about that as I'm moving these pieces around, and I'm going to start thinking about the shape. So for me, I'm going to kind of draw these little lines around here to separate the landforms. Maybe I'll make an atoll. I really liked taking geography, and I actually paid attention in that class quite a bit. So I'm going to bring in some of those ideas. And I'm just going to take some more time to spread out things. Maybe kind of open the mouth of that atoll up a little bit. And I'm going to leave a little bit of these extra rice and beans behind because those will make really cool little singular one-off islands. Now in my world, I also know that I actually have a split that goes through my world, and so I'm going to go ahead and draw that in just with my finger. It kind of splits both Somata and Nixvaris apart into 2 separate worlds. Nice. Now once you're comfortable with the overall shape, the next step is taking our pencil, and yes, I do recommend using a pencil here because you might want to change things throughout the next couple steps. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just start focusing on where all of these shapes kind of come together. And I'm going to trace around the rice and beans. I love this part because it's almost like magic. We're going to spend some time here tracing around, and then we'll take all of the material off the page, and voila, you're left with your map shape. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video, and we'll catch back up here in just a minute. I'm done. I feel confident about the shape that I've made here. And so I'm very carefully, without making a super huge mess, I'm going to try to gather all of my material. And like I said, this is where the fun really starts to happen, because you'll see that your world starts to almost unveil itself. And so I'm going to bring this pile together here, see if I can't get all of this to roll off nicely the first time. Nope, almost. That's all right. Making art is messy sometimes, and that's part of being creative. Alrighty, I'm pretty happy with the general shape I've got on my map here. I've got kind of my unexplored wasteland area to the west. I've got the Banished Isles, which will be throughout this region, the general shape and area of Solmata, and then this atoll structure, and then I've got Nixvaris as well, split by the Rift, which we'll talk about in a later episode as well. The next part of this map-making process is one of my favorite. And once you're happy with the structure and the outline of your map, then it's time to get serious. The next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to ink our map. And you can do this in a variety of different ways. I really like to use an old-fashioned quill pen, and so that's what I'm actually going to use to ink my map. But you can use a Sharpie, you can use a pen, whatever you might have on hand that will make the lines a little bit more permanent. And so that's the next step, is we're going to go ahead and outline everything with ink, and then we'll catch up here in just a minute. Alrighty, now we're done outlining the shape of our map. And the next step is to start lightly penciling in where we want our points of interest to go. And so those are things like, cities and towns, mountain ranges, lakes, villages, your bodies of water, whether those are lakes or rivers or oceans or seas. And we're just thinking about now kind of how we're going to start laying out this world. We've done the shape of the map, and the next step in this process is starting to fill the world with life.